Debo Samuel is a commander. Hello and welcome to my podcast. Do me a favor, subscribe to the John Keim Report wherever you get your podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. You can find us there as part of Ampire Media, Ampire. Always much appreciated when you tune in. Don't forget, you can read my work on ESPN.com. I have a story up now about the big news of today, which is that the Washington Commanders have traded for receiver Debo Samuel. I wrote that with Nick Wagner, who covers the 49ers for ESPN. And if you remember, I had him on the podcast a couple weeks ago talking about Debo Samuel because we all knew that this was a very good possibility of a move of trade like this happening. Anyways, a couple things to know for right now. I'm going to get into all my reaction here. And I also have a reaction piece up on ESPN.com. I think that's up by now. Listen, folks, all this stuff was prepared before this move was made. So kind of had a feeling that this was going to happen. Anyway, so the deal is they sent a 5th-round pick to the 49ers for Samuel. They are picking up the last year of his deal, so it's $17.55 million. So that's where we're at. I don't know yet about an extension. For a 5th-round pick, you don't have to do it. You can just let's see what happens, and then you could always let him go and get a compensatory pick next year if it works out that way. But I'm not sure. As I record the news is just kind of happening. So as I record this, I don't know yet what that means for the extension for his future. So we'll find out more about that as we go along. So that's what you need to know as far as what it costs to get him. They still have 6 draft picks for this year. And it wouldn't shock me if they do something more as far as maybe trying to recoup some other picks, maybe do some maneuvering on draft day. They still have the John Allen situation out there. Haven't heard anything on a trade at this point. But there are other ways to recoup draft picks. You could even, listen, man, you could even move down from 29, move back several spots, still get a good player at that spot in the second round and pick up a couple more picks if you wanted to make a move like that. So anyways, that's all down the road. What does Debo Samuel mean to Washington? What does this mean for Washington? What are they getting? So a couple things. One, we all know that he was a great player several years ago. 2021, he was dominant. I think he had over 1,700 yards from scrimmage, was a key reason why the 49ers did very well that year, getting to the NFC Championship game. And he was a dominant player. Has not been that same kind of guy since. He is still a very good player, though. And the question, though, is he just turned 29. He's dealt with some injuries over the years. He hasn't missed a lot of games. If you look at his games played, so I think it's like a combined 9 in the last 4 years. But you just wonder with his physical style and then getting carries out of the backfield, routes as a receiver, et cetera, the physical toll, what does it take on him? Last year, he missed games because I think it was calf, wrist, oblique, and rib. So what kind of toll does that take on a player, and how will his game age? And I think that's, so I think that could speak to what they do in the future. But a couple things to know is, obviously, Adam Peters is very familiar with Debo. He was in San Francisco when they drafted him in 2019 in the second round. And then Anthony Lynn, Washington's run game coordinator, was an assistant head coach and running backs coach with the 49ers for 2 years. So they're intimately aware of who he is and what he brings. And I say that because we know from last year, a major key for all their big moves was firsthand knowledge of the player. So they have firsthand knowledge of the player and what he adds and what, all that good stuff. Now, I should mention, as I record this, the trade is still pending him taking a physical. So just understand that. So anyway, but that firsthand knowledge is key, not just of what he can do on the field. We can see that, right? But also what he adds to the locker room, what kind of player, what kind of person he is inside there, and for the organization. I think if they weren't confident in what he adds, they would not take him. And that means how he's going to report to camp and the kind of shape he'll be in, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't think that that's a concern, because if it was, I don't think they would have made this kind of move. What are they getting here with Debo Samuel? How does this help Washington? Is this a good move? Well, I think, listen, Adam Peters swung for Marshawn Lattimore in the middle of the season, sending a couple picks to the Saints. That the jury is still out on that one, right? And so we know the injury toll that it took on him this season. How did it impact his game? We're still going to have to wait and see what it looks like in the summer and then in the season for Marshawn Lattimore to say whether or not that's a good move. But again, with this one, this is a 5th-round pick. So that's not a high cost for them. And yeah, there's a cap cost there. However, they do have a lot of cap space, and they are, by getting when they part ways with John Allen, that's 16.3 million more in savings. It afforded them the ability to make a move like this because they still have to re-sign a lot of guys. So I think, for a fifth round pick like this, I don't consider this a I don't think consider this a risk. I think it's like, hey, if it pays off, it's a major bonus. And if it doesn't, it's a fifth round pick. And so I think that's one way I would look at it. So if they give it up a lot more than that, now you're looking at something different. They didn't do that. So that's one thing though. Two, he's 6 foot, 215, plays very physical. And it's important, like Kyle Shanahan, one of the things that I always liked about him with his receivers is that they basically demanded that they play a certain way with the physical nature in the run game, et cetera. That's what they need to have here. And I think they're getting that with this guy. Listen, De'Ami Brown, Noah Brown, those guys did that as well, but this is what he adds for sure. And he has good speed, 4.48 guy, but he's not a guy that's going to get you over the top all the time. In fact, like I had this stat in my reaction story that Terry McLaurin has 25 catches since 2019, came out the same year. 2019, Terry McLaurin has 25 catches for 25 yards or more. Deebo has 9 such catches, right? So it's not with 25 air yards or more, I should say. So it's not that he only has 9 of 25, it's 25 of air yards. So down the field threats is the key there. So he can obviously make big plays, but the downfield, just the go ball, it hasn't been necessarily what he's done over his time in the NFL. But it is something that it is something that he can make those big plays, but just not the downfield type. Like he will get those deep down, deep in routes, et cetera. But the go ball hasn't been necessarily what he does, but he does a lot for you. We know he's a Swiss Army knife of a player. And it's funny because Washington has had players over the last 5-6 years. It was like he could be a Debo Samuel type. Well, now they have Debo Samuel. Anyways, what does he have left? So in the first 8 games last year, he had 2 games over 100 yards. I think it was 6 fit with 54 or more yards receiving. In the last 7 games, he had 22 yards or less 6 times. So was that an injury toll situation? I think some of that could have been. I think we'll find out. I don't think his game just dropped that precipitously. But I do think, listen, it's partly why he was available. It's why the Niners were agreed to trade him when he went to them and requested a trade. And after the season, he actually talked to Kyle Shanahan about that. And then Adam Schefter reported that on Super Bowl Sunday. So like I say, this is not a big risk because it's not like they gave up a lot for him. And I also think that being here with this quarterback is going to help. Jaden Daniels is a better quarterback than Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy has done a really nice job for the 49ers, but I went back and watched a couple games this morning just in preparation for the potential of this move. And one thing you notice with a lot of these is that there were some throws that were just off target, and he's having to reach up high and behind, and which takes away from some of the yak. And there were a couple slants that were just too far out front, et cetera. I think Jaden is better ball placement. I think Purdy's a fairly accurate passer. And it's funny because on throws of 15 air yards or more, he's more accurate than Jaden was last year. But I will say, in watching Debo, I feel like the change with the quarterbacks is going to help him for sure. And it's not like he's going to be surrounded by a lot more talent. There was really a high level talent in San Francisco, of course, but I do think the quarterback here will make a difference. And I also think, and again, he was used well in San Francisco, but you have a coordinator here who can also use him very well. And it's funny because I texted with the coach this morning who is definitely familiar with Samuel, and his comment was he called him a baller, a great competitor, damn tough, as good a contact balance as there is when he's healthy. And said that's the big question: can he be healthy and available? Otherwise, he's not even available to acquire. So this person was also saying like he's kind of a super version of Olamide Zaccheaus. Now, obviously, he's much better than with Zaccheaus, but the way he can be used. In the way that Zaccheaus was used, now you're putting Debo Samuel in that role. So what's going, the trickle down effect with Jaden Daniels for all the talent around him should be very high. And so I think that makes a big difference. as well. He can, you watch him, you get you see the screens that De'Ami Brown ran last year. He runs those. You see, he can, the physical play. Like there was one ball that against a cover two, it was a Tampa two look against, I can't remember who it was against for San Francisco last year, but it's a Tampa two look. And the corner tries to jam him on the outside, reroute him, I should say, not jam, but reroute him. But because he's a stronger player, doesn't do anything to him, and Purdy's able to stick it in there. So that's just a little thing, but the ability to stay on track when someone's trying to jam you like that is or reroute you is pretty good. So you see that. Then you see him lining up in the backfield, running routes. You see him obviously carrying the ball. Now his yards per carry were a lot less last year than typical when he's in that role, and he's only running 2 or 3 times a game on average. I don't think you need to run him more than that, especially as he gets older. But I will say, like a couple of the runs that I saw, and I haven't done enough studying of it, but a couple of the runs I saw, like was only 3 or 4 yards. Like, well, the problem was it wasn't him; it was the holes that weren't there. So I don't know that it was all him. Was it the blocking? I don't know. But in the couple games that I saw, it looked like it was the holes just weren't there for him. But he still threatens teams. So there was a play that he had against Detroit. So in this game, he was not doing well, but he's still a focal point of a defense. You still have to be aware of him. So on the play, Purdy fakes, he's on the right side in the backfield, and Purdy gets a snap and fakes the lineman, the movement of the line. They're pulling action to the right, but they fake the toss to Deebo running to the right. Well, the defense just bites on it big time. Enough so that they lose George Kittle sneaking out backside for an easy catch and run for like 21 yards. But the point is, just his presence out there helped open up. Now, maybe somebody else gets it that way. The action of the play was really good as well. But I think also you have to be aware of him when he's out there and what he can do. And it opened up a play for George Kittle where George Kittle, one of the best tight ends in the league, nobody paid attention to him because they were all looking at Debo Samuel and trying to get over there for him. So like that's the kind of stuff that he can still do when he's in the backfield. You see the jet action as well. So a lot of good things that you can do with him. And I think one of the things is with Cliff Kingsbury, what we saw last year, with one of the things that players like Austin Eckler, Zach Ertz, one thing they would talk about was just how creative Kingsbury would be with his lines. We saw that. So could you envision a backfield where you have Eckler and Debo Samuel at times running routes out of the backfield? Like how are you going to match up with that? So it just adds another layer to what Kingsbury can do with this offense and how they can expand it and maybe expand some roles. You could go in the base package. You could have Eckler, Brian Robinson, or whomever, and Debo out wide. And now you have some options. Then you can motion Eckler out to the route and motion Debo into the backfield. I'm going to be giving Cliff Kingsbury all these tips here, right? But it's just the bottom line is it opens up the possibilities for what you can do with this offense and to help the offense expand and Jaden Daniels expand. And it's funny because you hear, again, I've talked about this a lot, but you hear a lot about, well, teams are going to get, they're going to study Jaden Daniels. Well, this team is studying them as well. And Jaden Daniels is studying other teams, but they're also going to enhance the talent around him. And this is step one. I do think, they can't be done at receiver because they only have three guys now that I would say are locks for the roster in McLaurin, Luke McCaffrey, and now Debo Samuel. They still have to do things like they loved Olamide Zaccheaus. I could see him back. De'Ami Brown's going to be interesting. Noah Brown, I can't imagine there's much of a market for him given his injury history and the kidney injury he's coming off of. And they do like him. I could see him coming back, see what he can do. But I still think you need to do more because you don't want to get a lot of guys you don't want to get too many guys who have an injury history. I mean, you could certainly look for the draft for that. We'll get to more of that as we move on as we move on in the off season here. But they did take a big step into trying to help this offense. Again, we'll see where it goes because I think Debo's got to go out and show what he can still do. But you have to look at how he's going to be used and who was used in that role last year at times or in similar ways, and he's better. So this makes the offense better. And it's funny because, again, watching some of his action today, and he does get those tough catches. He will break some tackles. He averages 9.0 yards after the catch for his career. That's pretty damn good. So that what it also suggests is a lot of stuff underneath where he's able to get some extra yards after the catch. And that's what, that's going to help any offense as long as he stays healthy. That's going to be the key here. Got to stay healthy, but as long as he does, he's going to be a help. And then with McLaurin on the other side, you have another guy who plays tough as well and plays physical. When you get guys like that, like you watch the way the team responds to McLaurin when he gets going. I think you can see some of that with the receiver too. Like when you start adding tough physical guys, you become that kind of team, and it becomes infectious for the rest of the team, right? And so I think the more guys you get like that, the better off you are. And they can't be done. They've got more to do. They've got to, to me, offensively, still get a running back. Whether I would say in the draft for sure, because it's a good draft for that, and they are talking to guys at the combine, who are potential picks, who are running backs. Could use. You need to bolster the offensive line, whether it's just for depth, whether it's replacing a starter or two. Still got to do some stuff there, but this to me was a key start to get, to help boost the offense, which was 5th over in scoring and 7th in yards last year. So good start to the offseason to me for the Commanders. Curious to hear what you think. Again, for a 5th round pick, not a big risk here. So, but let me know what you think in the comments on YouTube or wherever. And there you go. I'll be back, I think, either on Monday or Tuesday with another podcast. I was going to do my 5 things I think for Monday, but we'll see what happens. If I have, this was going to be one of them I thought this was going to clearly be close to happening. Anyways, but I'll be back out with either Monday or Tuesday with another episode. And I'll have a couple more episodes for you next week as we get headed closer and closer to free agency and the start of the new league year, which is March 12th. That's when this trade becomes official. Anyway, folks, appreciate you tuning in, and bonus podcast, man. Enjoy it. Talk to you next time.